Good morning, welcome to JALI. My name is Matheus, and my work is about typification of monsters, ex-heroes in Shyamalan's Eastrail 177 trilogy under the scope of cultural semiotics. Now I will open my slides. That is the title of my work. I'm Matheus, that I said. And the principal topics that I talk about is the superhero comics, speed genre, the semiotics of culture, symbols, and symbols in Eastrail 177. The objective of my work is about the Eastrail 177, the trilogy of movies directed by M. Night Shyamalan. The trilogy that was released in 2000, 2016, and 2019, respectively, were the most popular works produced by the director. These three films are Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, respectively. The objectives this paper aims to analyze the trilogy of heroes produced by M. Night Shyamalan according to semiotics of culture, pointing out the different messages that are present in his films, be shown in a clearly or in an implicit way, and analyze the heroes in comic books that served as a reference for director Shyamalan to create the protagonists and antagonists of his films. The procedures. The research was carried out through watch and annotate important aspects for the analysis of these three films, and reading and analyze the authors such as Yuri Lothman and his study of semiotics of culture, and also the narrative of comics by U. Asner. The theoretical basis, according to superhero comics, in this first moment, comics deal with two major communication devices, words and images. Admittedly, this is an arbitrary separation, but since in the modern world of communication, they are treated as independent disciplines, it seems valid, according to Asner. The different ways that a comic can communicate with the reader is important to understand the message you want to convey, using action scenes and use the well-known balloons or rectangles for speech and or thoughts. The speech genre. The speech genre is formed by three aspects: thematic content, style, and compositional structure. These three important aspects for Bakhtin referring to the discursive genre, and all these three are presented in comics. Precisely because of this, they have their particular form of communication with the public. In that case, comics have these three aspects: thematic context, style, and a compositional structure in the narrative. Here we have three examples of comics. We have Superman, Captain America, and Spider-Man comics. Just some examples. The superhero comics genre, these companies that were created with this objective of researching the public, of reaching the public, and still have their hegemony today, are DC Comics and Marvel, who create several heroes that are still well known and loved by the geek community. For example, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Captain America. The creation of these characters, such as Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern, were based on an idealization of someone with superhuman strength, ability to fly, and powers beyond those possible for a human. This conception of hero is linked to the historical moment in which they were created. During the middle of the Second World War, people needed an encouraging vision and a figure who protects cities to divert attention from the chaotic scenario in which they lived. And now we'll talk about semiotics of culture, the main point of my work. Lothman proposed that the semiotic of culture is concerned with the semiotic function of a real text. For this reason, his concept of text is expanded to include subtests in language that were not mutually derivable one from the other. but were situated on the semi-hierarchy level. In that case, semiotics of culture need to understand all the tasks, not just what's right, but need to understand the meaning of all parts. For example, understand the meaning of an image, of a task, of a thought, and all of that. For a better understanding of what Lotman considers language, Saussure's concept has a paramount importance, as he postulates that it is a system of signs that express ideas that is all presented in comics, for example, in movies, uh, all signs that are presented in that uh, things express an idea. About the idea of symbols, is the most important part to understand. The symbols is a part of cultural memory and carries cultural memory, but it is a discrete element, independent from other tasks and meaning by itself. In that case, it's possible to identify two types of symbols, according to Lothman. Those associated with the memory of a past time, preserved in the construction of heroes and villains, and the dynamic symbols that establish dialogue with the cultural context. And in that case, we have these two types of symbols that are present in comics and movies too. These symbols are important to understand an important aspect, be it the hero or the villain, can have symbols that characterize and explain why certain actions and attitudes are performed. Having an aspect of the past, find this, and also something that are important to understand a certain act or explanation without delivering directly to the public, thus taking the interpretation. And these symbols are important to understand an action, something that a hero do, or something a villain did too. As symbols in superhero comics more specific. The symbol is part of cultural memory and carry cultural memory, but is a discrete element, independent from other tasks and meaning by itself. The symbols are used by the companies DC and Marvel to represent some outstanding characteristics of the character or convey an ideology. One example of that is the letter S stamped on the chest of Superman, for example. In that case, it represents something like a hope for Superman. In that word, the S represents hope. Symbols in superhero comics. Every hero has a symbol in its essence, whether for something he or she went through or what justified their need to battle and save lives. According to Joseph Campbell, he designates that specifically heroes go through a heroic journey in which they go through tasks and stages of preparation that will make them discover their full potential and hone their superhero abilities. For example of this journey, the hero need to pass is the hero journey for about Batman that Batman passed to become the hero. Superhero comics important for the Shyamalan, the director, who has always been a fan of heroes and comics, and he wanted to create his own universe focused on this theme. However, showing normal people who have certain specificities that others do not, showing up like these superhero powers. And in his films, he created the heroes, but linked to normal people. For example, the Deputy Dunn and Mr. Glass in Unbreakable, and Kevin Wendell Grump in Split, the main antagonist and protagonist for the three films. And in the 30th film, Glass, these three are presented. David Dunn has super strength, and Mr. Glass, due to an illness, any fall causes bone in his body to break, and he has super intelligence. And Kevin has 24 personalities, making him act in different ways, and even gaining super strength and invulnerability in some of these personalities. Symbols in Eastrail 177 trilogy. For example, one important symbol is water. Water for David Dunn character has his weakness in this substance, showing that even any trace of it already causing him fear. David Dunn is the principal protagonist, and when he was young, he has his fear about water. Mr. Glass stick that he always carried with him represented the nickname he received due to his illness, and also the protection he has to move around without a fear or forcing too much height on his fragile legs. And that because you have this name, Mr. Glass, because your body is too fragile. Kevin's clothes change as their personalities alternate as well, where Danny's personality suffers from OCD, the obsessive compulsive disorder. Dennis is one of the personalities of Kevin Wendercramp. So his clothes are always well ironed and aligned on his body. Here we have the three protagonists and antagonists of the film, Mr. Glass, Kevin Wendercramp, and David Dunn, in this case. And all of these three have his symbols, and his symbol represents a characteristic of each of them. All have a symbol, all have a characteristic to understand. The final words, the end of my work. The construction of superheroes was of paramount importance for the idealization of a fantastic imaginary, where readers can glimpse stories of powerful beings that protect an entire community. The semiotics of culture is important to understand the work, since the symbology that the director, Shyamalan, wants to convey in his work. Everything in your film has a meaning. It's important to understand that. Everything in your film has a meaning that I said. Whether it's shown clearly or implicitly. Not all in the film about the director was clear, but can be implicitly too. And the symbol will demonstrate what a certain characteristic about an object, the whole environment is important to understand something in the movie, what the director wants to pass, and they want to act in relation to some character or the narrative in itself. In that case, in all the film about for Shyamalan, it's important to understand what they want to pass for the public, and the public try to understand what the director want to pass, what the director shown. That's my reference, and that's the last part of my work. Thank you so much, and have a good morning.